Hello, everyone. Friday night, and you know that is Friday Night Live. And please welcome my special guest, Jeff Daugherty. How you doing, Jeff?
Wayne, I am doing very, very well. It's an honor to be with you. Somehow I keep thinking it's Sunday morning, but it's not.
No, no, no. And I'll tell you, Jeff, I had never occurred to me that I just want to say hello to all the moderators. Welcome to everyone who's coming in tonight. Never occurred to me that you and I never had you on my show and actually introduced you to my audience. And so I thought that this would be a momentous occasion to have you on and let my people get to know you. Those who don't watch the Sunday morning show, and I can't imagine that individual, whoever it is. I mean, anyone who's in the know knows that that's the place to be on Sunday morning. So,
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
so I thought, why don't you just tell the audience, this audience, and by the way, folks, I put his link down there. Go over there and subscribe. Get him out there. I'd like to see him get over 20,000. So,
Well, we're just shy of 18 now, Wayne, so we're on a roll.
all right. So let's see what we can do to boost that up.
Thank you very
Hello,
much.
Claudette. Warrior Princess. Hello. How are you doing?
I love
So,
Lois.
why don't you just, first of all, how long have you been what we would call classically today awake? When did you come out of this Christian indoctrination?
That's a really good question. I think probably the real answer to that is about 8 years. I would say 7 or 8 years, because for 20 years, I was a full time licensed Protestant minister, as a Pentecostal minister, Assemblies of God, Church of God in Christ, in that ilk. And for 20 years, Bible college graduate, and then started seeing the cracks in the foundation of big time religion, at least as I saw them. And decided to go back to the original languages of the scriptures and found out that, at least in my opinion, there's at least two gods in there. There's at least two faiths in there. And I chose to walk away from the faith of Paul and embrace what I saw as the faith of the master, Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to call him. And I think that today, even though if you put a gun to my head and said, how much of the Bible do you believe is actually literally the words of the divine, I might say 25%. But I think even today, believing in 25% of it, I'm much more dedicated to the message of the Christ or the message of the Master and living a life of true spirituality than I was in at any other than I have been at any other point in my life. It's almost ironic, but that's kind of the long and the short of it, Wayne. And probably I came from that into went from Orthodox Christianity, went into some Seventh Day Pentecostal Christianity, and then kind of morphed into my own thing, which I was originally calling New Covenant Kabbalah, and then realized that the master was teaching a lot more than just Kabbalah, and that morphed into New Cosmic Knowledge now, which is NCK. So we're trying to put together and discover different spiritual technologies, different teachings that I believe have been brought together under the message of the master, and not trying to change anybody's opinions, not trying to do anybody's thinking for them. But I think I'm like the mailman, Wayne. I bring the information. Sometimes I bring bills and you hate me. Sometimes I bring checks and you love me. But at the end of the day, I'm bringing you the information, hopefully, that'll allow you to have all the cards on the table and make decisions based on a greater amount of data. And I think that should lead to a better decision. But 8 years, 7 years, to a short answer to a short question.
Wow. So I'm curious, as you broke away from the faith,
Mm-hmm.
did you suffer much persecution?
It's funny, Wayne, because the day before I left the church, I had, a stack this high of people asking for letters of recommendation. I had my calendar was this thick of, meetings. But the day after I decided to leave, it was actually my wife ran off with my piano player and ended up going through a divorce. And the day before the divorce, I had, everyone's giving me the right hand of fellowship. The day after the divorce, everyone was giving me the left foot of fellowship. So
Now tell people, because unless you're in the Pentecostal circles, you really don't know what that means. What's the left foot of fellowship?
well, when you come in and you get saved and you join the church, they shake your hand, they give you the right hand of fellowship. But when you go against the rules or something happens to you and they decide to kick you out, that's when you get the left boot or the left foot of fellowship, because they're kicking you in your derriere on the way out the door.
Is that the follow-up, that don't let the door hit you in the ass as you're getting out?
Or if we can make it a little more religious, we could say, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
I love the colloquialism. That's great. So so when you leave and all of a sudden there's no support, there's no, didn't the master say that he would leave the 99 in search of the one to bring it back in? I mean, isn't that the mantra?
Yeah, the master said that, but some of his servants don't look at it that way. But I have to say, there were two men. One's name is Brian Larson, and he's still a pastor within the Church of God Seventh Day in Spokane, Washington. If you ever need a good man, look him up. He doesn't believe anything I believe anymore. I don't believe anything he believes, but I believe he's a good man and he can help you. And also a man named Tom O'Haver, who's up in the Bothell, Washington area, working in some type of messianic groups. But those two guys reached out to me and helped me, continued to be my friend. And, we could still be friendly today as long as no one saw us together that knew them. It would be fine. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, you become lepers are treated better than you, Wayne.
Isn't that so? And it's amazing.
And Steve Barron says that we sound ludicrous, Wayne. We sound ludicrous.
Huh. Ludicrous. Well, I think that's fine. I think that everyone's entitled to their perspective. And
well, in this world today, Wayne, if you don't sound crazy or you don't sound ludicrous, you ought to be a little worried about yourself.
Exactly, because you've become the zombie. It's the, I thought of the word when I was coming in here to go do the show, automation. And I thought,
automation. Whew.
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to do. In fact, that's what we're becoming, automatons.
We are becoming automatons. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's like, you if you don't follow the certain path, the certain mantra, the certain procedure, and you know what, and I'll just be very candid on this, it's in the metaphysical world now. If you don't hit on a certain perspective, let's say, and that isn't in line, well, then you become ostracized. You become, well, you and I at one time had quite the opposite following there.
Absolutely. And Wayne, somebody says that just means they think we're rappers, calling us ludicrous. So that's okay.
Okay.
But, that's why I find people like Magenta Pixie so refreshing, because she's thoroughly new age, but she reached across the aisle to me, who's probably more thoroughly in the truther community. And it's nice to know that there are people that are looking beyond these lines that are drawn and looking beyond the proverbial box and looking to reach out to people of like spirituality. And we all want the same thing in the end. And it's amazing to me, as different as Magenta Pixie and I can be, when I listen to her messages, she's saying the very same things that I am. She's just using different verbiage and she's speaking to a different audience. And you'd have to be, I was going to say idiot, but I won't say idiot. You really have to think hard of why you wouldn't want to expand the reach of your audience if you're sharing a common message.
Oh, I like that. And speaking of which, so what is the biggest challenge for those who are becoming unindoctrinated? What do they really face? Because I think there's a cognitive disconnect there for a while, but
oh, absolutely, Wayne. I when I was still preaching, I used to say that sometimes you got to preach people lost before you can preach them found. So a lot of people didn't see that their real or their need for a savior. And it's funny that we were trying to get people to the place where they need a savior so we could help them. And the fact is, if we'd have let them alone, they wouldn't have needed our help if we didn't try to get to that place. And I think the hardest thing for people that have grown up in the West, people that have been exposed to 2,000 years of the fear and guilt control matrix that is big time Christianity, is you really have to unlearn error long before you can learn truth. And usually, Wayne, in some form or fashion, you almost have to crash and burn. You almost have to hit bottom before you can look up, because this God spell, as you say, is so strong and it's so completely, totally encased us that we almost have to crash before we're able to say to find a moment where we can break that cognitive dissonance and come to our senses and say, we can't prove any of this stuff that we believe, and we only believe it because we believe it. And to get to that place where you actually get to an objective thought, just one objective thought, Wayne, I think sets us on the right path. But sometimes it's a long, hard journey to get to that first objective thought.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking several things. Number one, it's not an easy road.
No.
In fact, it's almost kind of contradictory of me, but I always advise some people don't do it. You know, the Matrix was right. Morpheus said, there's at a certain point where you can't wake up a mind.
You can't.
It's dangerous.
It's almost better to just wait till the next time.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the interesting thing,
But Wayne, the thing that haunts me is, what if I'm wrong and that person could have used some of the information? You almost want to say, oh, you know what? I'm just going to let him go. I'm not going to take him down that path. But what if I'm wrong, Wayne, and something that I had to say or something that I could share with them might have made a difference in their life, and I don't do it? That's the thing that haunts me. That's why I'm making 4 or 5 videos a day, because I want as many people as possible to get as much information as possible so they can help find their way in this life and in their spirituality.
Yeah. And this is validated by research study, Pew study, Barna Group study. The nuns, NONES, us, that's what they've now categorized us,
right,
is growing. They estimate by 1 million a month. That many people are exiting the faith of Christianity. And now there's this growing group that are kind of just lost. I mean, they were lost to begin with, as you said. You almost have to make them lost before they're found. Well, now they're really in a pickle. They don't have the safety net anymore, and that can lead to a lot of uncertainty in one's life.
It's really difficult, Wayne, to make the transition of realizing that, because you realize that religion, and pick your religion, you realize that it's hierarchical, it's a bureaucracy, it is a fear and guilt control matrix, and it's easy to make the analogy of, well, religion's bad, so God must be bad. There must not really be a God. Let me be an atheist. It's very, very difficult to make that differentiation between religion and divinity, because I don't know if there's any good religion. In fact, I would say that the more religious you are, the less spiritual you are. I don't think you can be religious and be spiritual. To the extent that you're one, you won't be the other. That's my personal opinion. But once you realize that religion is the problem, not God, not the divine, not divinity, and you can stop blaming God for religion, then you're on the way to enlightenment, I think.
Yeah. The struggle that I see, even with myself for a very long time, that's why I'm here where I'm at, was defining God.
Right.
Once the anchor to my religiosity was cut, and I was telling my audience today, we're on this origin series, that I come out of the Kenneth Copeland, I come out of the Word of Faith movement. And I don't think people truly understand how indoctrinated one has to be in that movement. Faith is everything.
Yeah, I never even got to that point, Wayne.
And I was telling people that, I was with Joyce Myers when she was the very early days at Faith Life Christian Center.
I was much more refined, Wayne. I was at the Jimmy Swaggart ilk.
Yes. Well, actually, now we probably ran into each other because my ex-wife, who is now passed on, we actually went to Jimmy Swaggart's crusade there in St. Louis. Waited outside. Nice. I mean, it was one hot day in St. Louis, and but thoroughly enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed swimming.
What year would that have been, Wayne?
Ooh, probably I would say 79, 80.
That was a little early for me.
Okay. Yeah. I had found Kenneth Hagin, and, anyone who, I would say that Kenneth Hagin was the modern day birther of defining faith.
And I still remember that faith shield symbol he had.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And everyone can hear his story because he grew up, as a Southern Baptist boy.
Yep.
But that really gets into you. And the people that I hung around with, Marilyn Hickey.
Oh my, I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, yeah. And I could just go on and on.
You never met Catherine Kuhlman, did you?
Yes, I did.
Did you meet Catherine Kuhlman?
Yeah, yeah.
Was she an odd lady, as odd as she looked?
That woman had a lot of company. That's all I'll say. There was more than one living in that penthouse.
I gotcha.
But
we wouldn't want to say bats in the belfry, but
never. I don't want to defame bats. Give them
that's
bad name. So it's just the fact. But yeah, and that's where I came out of. And studying the Bible, that's why I got the Amplified Bible. I wanted to be able to read the Greek. I wanted to read the Latin. I wanted to see and that's how it was.
Yep.
You and I were talking about this sometime on our Sunday show, which is now into its second year.
It is.
It is. And, when I started with Ron Tucker up at Grace Christian Center in St. Louis, it became the single largest megachurch in St. Louis. And when we were in the storefront, we would get to church at 7:00. We wouldn't walk out of there sometimes until 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so you want to talk about indoctrination? I mean, that's getting yourself boiled into it.
That really is. It's at that level, it really is extreme. It really is all invasive. It is your life. And I'm sure that you were there on Wednesday night Bible study. I'm sure you were there for men's Bible study. You were there for Sunday morning and Sunday night service.
I became an usher and, was used in the gift of the Spirit, gave prophecies that were coming true. And now that I know that that's a natural gift, it was though when you're plugged into that kind of collective power, and that's what it is. It's collectively a group that are so focused in on something, it's tangible.
Right. But Wayne, you're still being used prophetically.
Don't tell anyone that.
I won't. It's our secret.
Please. And so
Catherine
now
Kuhlman is Kuhlman, Catherine with a K, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone was asking in the chat room.
Smith Wigglesworth was some of the people that I studied.
Wigglesworth. Oh, there's another great name.
Yeah. I mean,
A.W. Tozer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You didn't meet A.A. Allen, did you?
No, I did not. No. Yeah.
But R.W. Shambach for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we actually had him at our home. So the Azusa Street Revival, 1901, people probably are not familiar with that, but the miracles that took place, and they were bona fide.
Absolutely.
People were being raised from the dead. It was a unique period, but oddly enough, it was at that same time that we were seeing, for instance, Amy McPherson coming up.
Amy Simple McPherson.
Yeah. And boy, there's just a few other names I could think. John Lake is another one.
John G. Lake.
Yeah. And
Shambach tells the story about he was doing his tent revival and some guy had a heart attack out in the crowd. And they're like, what do we do with him? Brother Shambach says, just put him in the back. I don't want no dead corpse disrupting my meeting.
Yeah. No, someone said that.
And the meeting went on. They go back there. The guy's gone.
Dead.
And then he comes back in the next night. He'd been raised from the dead.
Yeah.
It's amazing stuff.
It is. Someone said, did I ever meet Robert Tilton? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Rick
Bob
Shelton.
Oh, my goodness.
Was a graduate of Bob Tilton's school.
Who was?
Rick Shelton.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is Bob Tilton still out there somewhere?
Oh, I think he may be in prison. He may be dead. I don't know. They ran his butt right out of Dallas there, and there's an interesting contrast. So we were just talking about a time of miracles. It's called the Spiritualist Movement.
Right.
That was the same time Edgar Cayce was coming up.
That's true.
And I contend, Jeff, that there was a power, an anointing, whatever you want to call it, that was available to whoever made access to it. And the spiritual, yeah. When you read what happened back in then, I mean, I read stories, and Catherine Kuhlman told of a story. She was out in the middle of some cornfield in Illinois doing a tent revival meeting, and a group of businessmen come in about 10:30. And the story goes that they were on the train commuting from Chicago to Columbus, and they felt the sudden calling and ended up in this cornfield in there. And I mean, there's story after story like that. So were these people plugged into the divine? Did they have something that we lost today? What do you think?
You know, the most inexplicable story I ever heard, and I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but his son had committed suicide. He was sitting in a hotel room, and he had just taken out a 357 revolver. He put it to his head, and he gets a call on the telephone in the hotel. No one knew where he was, and I still can't explain this to this day. He picks up the phone, and it's Jan Crouch, of all people.
TBN?
Of TBN, telling him, brother, don't do it. It's going to be okay. Explain that one to me, Wayne.
I met Jan. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it gives credence to that there is something beyond this physical form.
And I was walking, doing my preacher stuff. I have a revival. I'd go out and knock on some doors, invite people to the meeting. I knock on one door, and I invite this lady to the meeting. She opens the door. She's holding a gun. She says, I was going to kill myself. I don't need this anymore. Here you go. I'll see you at church tonight. And I had a nice little hammerless 38 to take home, Wayne.
Well, glad to hear that.
But I mean, how does that stuff happen? I wasn't woke. I was as thoroughly a Pentecostal preacher dummy as I had ever been. And yet, I guess, I don't know, maybe you knock on enough doors, sooner or later you're going to save somebody from suicide. I don't know, but it's just, there was a lot. I mean, I've seen witch doctors float up 6 feet high, and in the name of Jesus, I've rebuked them and they fell down. I've seen big tumors fall off, goiters fall off people's faces. I've seen a guy grow eyes in empty eye sockets. How do you explain that when I wasn't even close to woke?
Well, it's not the name, it's the belief that the
is.
name will do something.
Absolutely. So there is a power out there, and there's a lot of people from a lot of different ilks that are tapping into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know for myself, I recall a story. My ex-wife and I, we used to preach in the prisons, and
nice.
And you know, you really have to have a belief to let your wife walk among the inmates.
Well, you really do. Really do.
Oh yeah, let me tell you what. Now, so we got called to a person's house, and it was a guy and his girlfriend. And so we're talking to the guy, and we're kind of waiting. Where's the other part?
Yeah.
The woman. About that time, there is a long hallway that you could see, and she falls out of the bathroom.
Oh.
She had slit both wrists.
Oh, no.
And I went up there and immediately laid hands on her. And of course, speaking in the name of Jesus, commanded the healing to take place. And we watched her arms, both of them, just right before our eyes. And here she is. There's blood that had been spurting out a good 10 feet. And there's nothing now.
I mean, I believe you. I've seen that stuff before.
Yeah.
It's craziness.
You know, and I know people say, well, then how can you today sit here and tell us that there is no validity in this religion?
Well, Wayne, because I realized that I started off healing in the name of Jesus, and then I got a little more refined and started healing in the name of Yeshua. And now I've realized that it's the power of intention and the power, and I could and this is going to make some people mad, but I could literally heal, cast out devils, do miracles in the name of Mickey Mouse if I believed strongly enough in the name of Mickey Mouse. And you've said many times that you command in the name of R. Wayne Steiger.
I do. I lay hands on my wife.
How's it work?
It works very well, thank you.
Exactly.
I mean, my wife comes to me when she has a headache, because I can lay hands on her, and you can feel the transference of power. I mean, it's there, it's tangible.
It is. It absolutely is. You know, yeah, absolutely. That happens all the time. And it's one of those things where it just happens, and it's just real.
It is real. And, you know, it leads me to believe, Jeff, that it was and still is a part of what makes us as human beings unique. I think that we have the ability to heal ourselves. I think our bodies are receptors of those who have a gift for healing, and there is healers among us.
Absolutely.
You know, they don't have to be medical doctors. So I'm right there with you. And it begins to validate so much of this journey that we're on, because I'm like you. What got me on this journey, I was talking earlier to Lynn, and when we started, you got a little bit of head start of us. So you were what, right about 2000?
2000 is when I came out of Orthodox Christianity, and by 2005, 2006, I was probably, well, maybe I messed up my time. About 2000, I got out of the church, and then I was maybe 4 or 5 more years with those independent groups. So it's about 2005 now. What is this, 2018?
Yes,
Yeah, it might have been 2007, 8-ish. I started waking up, but I wasn't really woke until about 2000 and 10, 11.
Okay. That's about, I think, I'm telling you, Jeff, we'll have to talk about this on Sunday with Derek Prince. Is that right?
Derek Bros, the Global Witness.
Yeah, with Global Witness. So this is going to be a really special Sunday morning show, folks.
Absolutely.
So when we started first realizing that, as you said, I love that analogy, cracks in the foundation.
Yeah.
And began to realize that something wasn't right. Our first book was really one I really recommend, was this one here. It's called The Search for the Historical Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And it's by Dr. Ron Charles, excuse me. Here's what blew me away. This man went, and you have to read the book because you'll find out. The Gospel of Mark is a complete, well, I don't know how to say this in a nice way. It's basically a document that was never written by anyone named Mark, that was added to over the decades.
Absolutely.
And when you read Mark, it's the most, well, you're asking yourself, why is it even there? When the other 3 gospels, I mean, it really is true. The Gospel of Mark is also the one and only gospel that deals with demons more than any other of the 3 gospels combined.
Isn't that amazing? And last night, speaking of Derek Bros, the Global Witness is going to be on with us on Sunday. We did a show called The Greatest Heretic in History. You ought to check that one out, because the greatest heretic in history is not the person that you would think of naming.
And a heretic is, I did watch that, and I love Derek's definition of that, is what? It is to have an opinion that is contrary to those other something. Is that
basically a heretic is somebody that has opinions that are not in line with prevailing religious culture of any particular area.
Oh my God, free thinkers.
Free thinkers, that's right.
Burn
and the show
those
wasn't
bastards.
about me. It was not about me. I am not the greatest heretic of all time.
You know, the church had a way to deal with those free thinkers for hundreds and millennia. They burned your sorry butt and made you an example for everybody else.
They did. That's the great way to maintain a fear and guilt control matrix, is, burn the people that dare to open their mouth.
So we've been doing this.
John got it right. He says Jesus was the greatest heretic. Somebody give that man
yes.
winner chicken dinner.
Yeah.
Where is Scotty Roberts? Scotty, it's been my fault in this move. I've kind of lost track and have just been totally off kilter, but we will get the Rapscallions back together. I trust that Scotty's doing great, and I'll make sure that I call him after this show.
Yeah, we'd love to see you guys again. It was entertaining.
It's just my move, and just getting just too much going on, too many balls in the air. And Scotty's also traveling down in Texas, so it's absolutely nothing but just life getting in the way of having fun.
It is life, I'll tell you. I read out of the Singularity University yesterday. Oddly enough, time is speeding up.
Time is speeding up?
Yes. Something's happened.
I would agree with that. Time does seem to be speeding up for me. Now, is there some type of empirical standard we can look at to show that it's speeding up? Are there any
Yeah,
markers?
they're actually, and I'll send you the article, is actually on a quantum level. It's,
Oh, I can believe it because I
yeah,
can certainly feel it. I can
yeah,
experientially, I would definitely concur with that.
yeah. And it's like, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like I've stuck my finger in an electrical socket, and I have to go outside or I'll start lifting weights to kind of work it off just to go, well, what the hell is going on here?
That's interesting. And to me, I used to feel that way, and then I eliminated caffeine from my diet, so I feel a lot more calm than I have in years. So it's the lack of caffeine that is not allowing me to feel that yet. But I feel excited. I feel optimistic. I feel a sense of expectation. And as bad as things seem to be, Wayne, I just can't shake the feeling that it's going to be all right. There's good things are about to happen. Like the old church song, I've got a feeling everything's going to be all right. I really do believe that things are going to end up on a good note for us if we are seeking and watching and looking. And if we're into service to others and we're doing everything we can, we're doing the inner work, we're doing the inside job. I think it's going to work out for us pretty okay in the end. If you're not, well, I can't make any promises to you.
And folks, this is the difference with Jeff. When he thinks of I got a feeling, his background goes back to the church. Me, I'm thinking of the Beatles. I've got a feeling deep inside. Oh,
How
yeah.
about the old BJ Thomas song? Remember that?
I do. Listen, I really, and still
Hooked on a
do.
Feeling.
Yeah, hooked on a feeling.
And BJ Thomas became a Christian singer when
yes, he did.
His pop career went down.
Oh, I'm the one that one song, I'm going to meet Jesus. Folks, it's a great album. It's gospel, but I got to tell you what, it's good music. And that was the thing about Kenneth Copeland. Kenneth Copeland had a voice that he could have been easily counter to Elvis. I mean,
well, to this day, Jimmy Swaggart is still the number one selling gospel recording artist in all of history, and he turned down a contract with Sun Records right when Elvis and Jerry Lee were signing theirs.
Interesting.
Jimmy Swaggart taught Jerry Lee Lewis how to play the piano.
Well, they were cousins,
and Mickey Gilley. They were cousins.
Mickey Gilley. Now, he taught Mickey Gilley as well.
Yes, he did.
I have never been so messed up on Quaaludes until the time I went to Mickey Gilley's. Folks, this is way back. I mean, it's back in the...
Do they even make those things anymore, Wayne?
No, they don't.
It's so funny to listen to these stories. Here's a guy. I grew up in Florida, on the beach. You would think, I've never even seen a Quaalude. I've never seen even this first gram of cocaine. I've never seen heroin. I've never seen acid. I've never seen any of that stuff. I've seen some pills because I was in a relationship with someone that was hooked on them, but I've never seen or taken any of that stuff in my life. It's amazing.
Well, that is because being on the beach, and I come from a little different background. I mean, it's the environment I was in at 15 was in 1970 was a time of great social change in America.
Oh, absolutely.
And I just happened to hit the jackpot because I got to grow up in an environment that I doubt will ever come again. So, and the Quaaludes were very interesting time.
Was it Quaalude like an opiate, or what was it?
It was a barbiturate. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not opioid. It was a barbiturate. And that is
Jeff, I smoked weed maybe twice, Shane, in my whole life.
Yeah. I won't.
We called it pot back then.
Yeah. I sold a lot of that back then.
Maybe twice. And it's the funniest thing. People always ask me, and I used to talk about this when I preach. I used to say that the devil kept me off drugs because I had this deep innate fear of the devil, and I just knew that if I took some drugs, he would be after me. He's
going to be right there.
I never ever took drugs because of the devil. The devil kept me straight from drugs.
So I'll tell a true story here. I am 16. I'm at a concert with Creedence Clearwater Revival and Bo Diddley.
Oh my, that must have been amazing.
Yes, and I drop a hit of Window Pane.
What is that, Wayne?
It's LSD.
Oh no.
It was about 210 mics, and that's how you judge the potency of LSD. They do it by microns. So I am really stoned. I mean, I remember seeing John Fogerty literally start morphine and the guitar suddenly becoming like the whole stage, and there was these, anyways, very intense.
He was CCR, right?
Yes. Yep. And so I'm walking out and I meet a woman who I had met at a Christian youth camp when I was a ward of the state, where I had received Jesus as my Lord and Savior right before I turned 13. And Kay Klinsman's out there handing out gospel tracts. And here I walk up, and now my hair was down to here, and I am tripping. I mean, I am really tripping. And she's freaking out. She's like, "Oh my God, what's happening?"
She knew it was you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you know it was her?
Yeah, I began to figure it out real quick. I mean, I was definitely tripping. I hadn't even started peaking yet. And so, I told her it was fine. Oh, no, the devil's got you. And kind of the same thing. I mean, she grew up in Louisiana, and Homer, Louisiana, by the way. So
wow.
I go back to where I'm living, and we're outside, and I'm thinking about this. And the next thing I know, I'm astral projecting out of my body. And,
oh my.
And it was very strange because the moon was full. And down there in Houston, when the clouds come over, it really starts casting this really odd effect. And the next thing I know, I'm meeting spiritual beings. And so I'll never forget that.
Do you think it was actual spiritual beings, or were you just tripping?
Oh, no.
You know what?
No, I was a participant in a government program on the use of LSD on cognitive recognition. They taught us how to transmeditate. They taught us, we would do math experiments. We would do experiments with cards. And that LSD was really good stuff because, I mean, it was pure. And anyway, so yeah.
And LSD is made in a laboratory, right? It's
lysergic dialamine. Yeah.
Wow.
It's truth serum. That's what the CIA.
Truth serum. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Now, do people still do LSD? TODAY?
I think it's probably still out there. People have asked me, would I ever do it again? And I said, I don't need to. There's nothing it's going to do for me. What I've learned is to use my mind where I didn't need the inducer of the chemical reaction in my brain. And I think that that's what I would call more spiritual development than having to be induced by a elixir of some kind. And, when you study religious ceremonies, elixirs have been a key part of all of those ceremonies, hallucinogenics particularly.
Some people in the chat room are suggesting different varieties as well.
Well, by the way, there was a company today that got approval for psilocybin mushroom now. They're going to be using it. Yes, for post-traumatic stress syndrome. And they're now beginning to look at all the potential medicinal effects of psilocybin, particularly for suicide, chronic depression as well.
Well, it must be really good stuff if it can help correct suicide.
Well, it actually can. It's quite.
I mean, we're talking about prevent suicide.
Prevent. Yeah. Obviously, it can't. But maybe that's why I'm such a happy guy.
Maybe you are, and sometimes I get accused of being too optimistic and too laissez-faire, but you know what? I'm not worried about that much. I mean, it's like if you believe that David was a real guy. David said after one of his ordeals, he said, "The thing I feared the most has come upon me."
Yes,
and he lived through it. So I've the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. I've lived through it. So, you know what? I got nothing left to lose.
Well, you do a lot of guidance, what I call counseling work and what have you. What do you find? Because in the people that come to you, is it fear, the foundation of fear, worry? What do you see as some of the more common connections that people struggle with?
I think what I'm mainly seeing now, and I don't know if it's just a trend, but mainly I'm seeing people that want to find out what their great basic purpose is. People looking for, what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? Just to find their real purpose and their real place in life. And it seems like for the past 4 or 5 months, Wayne, everybody wants to do past life regressions. And I think there's a tie into that too, because if you can understand where you've been, it can help you understand who you are and where you want to go. And whether a past life regression really does take you into past lives, or whether it's just helping you access some parts of your brain or your spirituality that you don't access other ways, I don't really care. But that's the two biggest things right now. My great basic purpose, past life regressions, and also trying to do what I call life track analysis, go back through their mind, get the gaps out, make sure that their analytical mind is in charge and not the fight or flight, reptilian cortex. So those are the three things that I consistently get over and over and over.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Because and it's never a dull moment. I'll tell you that much.
I can only imagine, my friend, because I think in one way we all, I think, can have, number one, empathy for that.
Absolutely.
My childhood was not exactly, I've said this before, I never had the love of my mother or my father. And so, children that grow up in that. And then, of course, my father was one who took his aggressions out in beating me, breaking bones, and got so bad where he broke my back. And that's when the state took me away. And when I went to the state home, I saw children my age and younger, all from the same type of abusive backgrounds. And
that's so horrific.
Well, it is, and it's sad. We lived at a place in Houston, Texas. It was called Burnett Balin, and there were 6 boy cottages, and on the other side of the compound, there were 6 girl cottages. And then in between, there was a huge gym. But the point is, they took in children from 16 down to 6 months.
Wow.
And I can still remember to this day being in what we call the nursery cottage, which was cottage 4, that I remember a baby that was in there and had cigarette burns all over her body, his body. And there were so many children that I remember that I thought I had been spared, because I saw so many traumatic children in the way that they responded. So I get that.
So horrific.
And it carries forward. Many of the children that I was part of the home with are dead.
Oh, that's horrible.
So I really get it when people are struggling with what you said. What is my purpose? And I think for particularly, we're all in some point, we all face traumatic psychological situations, betrayal of love. I mean, your story, your wife leaves with a piano player. What the hell's up with that?
Truth is stranger than fiction sometimes.
I mean, that does hit a guy. I would say that for a guy, that's probably the deepest cut you can really give to an individual. Would you?
Yeah, it didn't feel good, but ironically or oddly enough, looking back is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And I realized one day that the divine was more interested in my spirituality than he, she, they, it were in my marriage.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to, and forgive me if I'm approaching on this, but you were right there at the edge, weren't you? I mean, you were in Hawaii thinking about going over the edge.
Well, I when she decided that she didn't want to be with me anymore, it just ironically, one of my best friend's wife had given him the same speech right around the same day. And we decided if we're going to be miserable, let's be miserable in Hawaii. So I was living in Oregon. So we went to Hawaii, and I got there like a day or two before he did. And I'm on about the 30th floor of this condo building right across the street from Ili Kai on Kapolani Boulevard. If you've ever been to Honolulu, you know where that is. Diamond Head's right over here. But anyway, I was sitting there, and there's Heineken bottles all over the place, cigar butts. I was just feeling bad for myself. And the thought came to me, I could just jump off this balcony and end it all. And then I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And I had a spiritual revelation right there. And then a little bit later, I walked out on the balcony, and the balcony had this really thick mesh on it that was bolted in with these screws. So the divine has a sense of humor. I couldn't have jumped off of there if I wanted to. It's hilarious.
And so what was your epiphany at that point then?
Well, I was laying there, and I wasn't on LSD, but I was a little inebriated, and I just, crying and, snot all over my face and all that stuff. And I just remembered the words of Job. And that was really my transformation. That's when I left religion and started to get in touch with the divine. Cause I said to him, I looked up and I said, even if you kill me, I'm still going to trust you. And I was just instantly sober. It was amazing. I was just like, boom, all of a sudden I had this clarity. Forget what you've been taught, go back to the original languages and learn it yourself. And that began like an 18-month intense study. I mean, I would be in my living room, and this was before the internet was big. So I would have 20 or 30 research books open, and I'm walking from book to book and making notes and highlighting. And I literally laid down everything that I believed and built it back up piece by piece, word by word, from the original Hebrew, the Aramaic, and the Greek. And that was really the beginning of my liberation right there.
Interesting.
It was fascinating. It really was.
It's a progression. And, I get sometimes accused that, well, you don't seem to say that you believe in anything. And I said, no. I just don't believe in these world gods.
Exactly.
There is something greater than all this. And I did a little demonstration today on how I see that. The divine, what I call the infinite being, the original thought, was in itself, it had no entity. It didn't have an identity of who it was. It wasn't even an entity. And it took on personification. And I demonstrated that by putting green dye into a glass of water. And I said, before it took on personification, it spread itself to other cedars, what we call species A, species B, and they had the essence of the pure thought, what we would call the infinite thought. And when it took on personification, so did the others, because it watched what original did.
It's amazing.
And then they took on their own colors.
It's amazing.
There was the species I call species A, who took on the red color. And they went throughout the cosmos, and each planet, they began to leave their essence. And this was by the life that we see on populated planets. Then we got species B, who was blue, who came behind species A and said, we need what species A helped build, create, and we're going to modify it. And thus today is where we find ourselves.
Wow, I see Sue G's in the chat room, Wayne.
Hey, Sue G, how you doing? Boy, we have a full crowd in here, my friend.
Absolutely, absolutely. And somebody was asking, what's a good book that we've read recently? I'm just finishing up the book, The Stellar Man. You can get the PDF online, Stellar Man, Stellar Man. Transformative book, no doubt about it. Anything by, is it Stephen Hawkins or Dawkins?
Hawkins,
amazing stuff. Yeah. And I also read a amazing book recently called Babaji the E.T. Trust me, read it.
Babaji the E.T. Is that Robert Stanley's book?
Robert Stanley kind of brought the book to all of us, but it's actually written by a man that I just had a conversation with, and he'll be coming on my channel with Robert Stanley and Jay Campbell, and I think Rex Bear, and maybe even yourself. And his name is Raj Wiseman. He actually wrote the book. And
what's the predication and the foundation?
That there's this being called Babaji, and he's been down throughout all of history. He's been Buddhas, he's been Jesus, he's been, one of the great avatars and gurus across the centuries, and that Babaji is still active and working in the world today. And he's given this great revelation through Mr. Wiseman. And, I'm not 100% in, but boy, there's some stuff to think about in that book, Wayne.
Interesting.
Absolutely. It's powerful.
I've complained that the problem with the Bible is that the mind coitus that one gets into is that if you buy into it, the book of Revelation ends the story. And there's apparently no more enlightenment for man, no more knowledge to be had, no more lessons to be taught. And
that was written 1900, 2,000 years ago. It was written about 100 AD. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm just saying. So what happened? Did God forget his laryngitis? But I like the premise of the fact that why wouldn't the divine continue try to write to us, to try to, the best thing that happened to humanity was its ability to write.
Absolutely. And it's just some, and Robert Stanley also sent me the Stellar Man book. So just some really, really good stuff. And I just reread The 5 Love Languages, a great little book.
Interesting. Those are good books, folks. So I believe that if people don't read enough, Jeff, they listen to, today. And it's so interesting because we have grandchildren that, are down there in age, but it's let me look up and see what Google says. And the first thing that comes up in the first article, that's what they're going to be basing their information on.
I remember back in my day, Wayne, I would ask my dad, "Hey, Dad, what does this word mean? Or how do you spell this?" And he always had the same answer every time: look it up. I had a big dictionary he bought me, and he'd just say, "Look it up."
Yeah. I lived with a foster parent family that actually had a complete edition of Britannica Encyclopedia.
Oh, how about that?
Oh, man. I said, you folks are rich.
Yeah.
And as we all know today, but now that's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. It just hit me. So back when I was growing up, and then you came after me about 10 years later, but the information that we would get, that was history. But our learning process, how we were discovering things, was much slower. Today, you could print an encyclopedia. It's going to be out of date by the time it's printed.
Yeah, but the guy will come back around next year and sell you the updated versions.
Yes. Well, you've got to get the insurance policy. We'll update this every year. And
that's right.
And that's exactly how they did it. In fact, I remember I had my stepmother actually buying one on green stamps.
Oh my, I remember the S&H green stamps.
Yeah. Back that was the barter technology.
Wayne, we're getting old.
You know it. I'm sitting here and I'm going, yeah, but you know what? I got to see the bands.
Yes.
I saw the bands, man. And that's well worth it.
That's when I was living in Orlando and I really wasn't a big fan, but the Rolling Stones came to town and I thought, you know what? Yeah. This is the Rolling Stones and these Stones aren't going to be rolling much longer. So I might as well go see them. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. Excellent. It was just amazing. And I also got to see Billy Idol. So now I can die happy.
Oh, man. I'll tell you, I saw the Stones when they toured with the Eagles. And
the Stones and the Eagles?
Yeah.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Back in I think it was 84, 85. And I don't care what anyone says. Mick Jagger, that man is an entertainer.
Oh, he was tremendous. I don't know how old he is, 70, 69. I don't know, but man.
He's 78, I believe. And his workout.
It up. This was maybe 4 years ago. And 3 years ago, he destroyed it. It was amazing.
Yeah. I saw Rod Stewart.
2.5 hours.
And have the stamina.
Yeah.
Do you know that what he works out 4 hours a day with is ballet?
Oh, that's right. I did know that.
Yeah.
Wayne, did you ever see Elvis live?
I did. I saw him at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, 1968.
Oh, my goodness. 1968?
Yes, sir.
That was probably the best Elvis ever looked.
Yeah. Still remember it to this day.
One of my great disappointments is I never got to see Elvis perform live.
But you knew all the people that hung around him.
I know, but I didn't become a fan until he died. I didn't really know who he was, and they started showing him on TV after he was dead. I'm like, this dude is cool. Yeah. So now I'm good friends with several of the people that were his best friends and the ones that are still living. And yeah, so it's like I knew Elvis, but I knew him by proxy just by being around all his best friends.
one of the best concerts that I ever seen him do was the acoustic set on MTV.
Yeah, that was
And
great.
that
That was also
was,
in 1968.
yeah, it was just fabulous to see the dude in his element.
Yeah.
Just him and his guitar. And of course he had, was it the, who was his backup group?
We
The,
had his original three that were with him in Sun Records.
the Cavaliers, what was the group?
The Jordanaires is
The
who you're thinking
Jordanaires.
about.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And I also had the privilege to see Ricky Nelson.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
And
awesome.
my wife, still got a cry. I mean, Ricky Nelson was a looking guy. I really,
Yep.
I mean, Jeff, we're getting old, dude.
We are really, really getting old.
But I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
And I had the crazy happenings this past week to happen to speak with one of the former lead singers of Chicago and the iconic lead singer of Aerosmith. So it was pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Talk about
It had
this.
to do with talking about their recoveries, and they're both of them 25 years plus.
Steven Taylor.
So, just amazing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
my best friend of 44 years is friends with both of them and just happened to be at the right place in the right time.
That's pretty cool, dude.
Yeah.
That is really cool. I mean, it's not that we so much look at them as idols. It's the fact that I appreciate their talent.
Oh, yeah. And I didn't know that both those guys, Jason Scheff, 25 years sober, and Jason Scheff, 30 years, Steven Tyler, 25 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And forgive me if I misquote that.
Well, you can definitely see that it really took a toll on Steven. He was never a good-looking guy to begin with. But dude, man.
Now, Mr. Tyler, I didn't say that about you. That was this guy over here.
Hey, Steven, I'm just saying, man, it's just, that's the problem with alcohol, man. It pickles you.
Yeah. I don't think Steven has any problem with the ladies, however.
Oh, listen, no. I mean, we all seen it go through life. It's like, you look at guys and, yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, to be, famous like that, well known, and to still take your time to talk to just a regular guy, that says a lot about who those people are.
They're just like us. They're searching, they're seeking. I would dare say this, and I have no proof to back this up, but I think that with you, myself, others, Rex, we're probably more people watching this than what we may know.
I think so too. And yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's amazing just how you're right. You're definitely right. And you're going to start seeing, I think, some of those people showing up.
Listen, I have her permission to say this, but I have a email relationship back and forth with one of the royal family members.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Very directly related to the Queen. Directly.
Now that opens up, everybody's going to say that you're having concourse with reptilians, Wayne.
Well, no. I if it can be transference by email, I don't see how that. But I will say what has been sent to me has proven to be 100% spot on.
Amazing.
So, well, Jeff, boy, this hour is come and gone, my friend. So
time is speeding up, Wayne.
It is speeding up. Listen, I tell people how to get in touch with you and how they can, get over there and become a part of this. Listen, I listen to your daily mantras when you put them out there. They're really good stuff, folks.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. You mentioned the one about the commitment in the bacon and egg breakfast.
I did. I texted you on that one.
I had a lot of commentary on that one. It was just a silly little thing, but it does have a profound little lesson on, the chicken is involved, but the pig is committed, right?
Totally.
Absolutely. It's very easy to find me if you want, one-stop shopping for all the heresy that is Jeffrey Daugherty. You can just go on YouTube, Jeffrey Daugherty Show, or if you pull up Christian Whistleblower, that still comes up, even though I'm the artist formerly known as the Christian Whistleblower. And all the links are there. Everything's there. And, it's just trying to bring you information, help you unindoctrinate yourself, give you some tools to create the life, create yourself and build the life you'll love, and hopefully get you to ask questions and question answers, because folks, we're the last generation of real humans, and it's time for us to get busy.
And you also have a new person in your life. I want to give recognition to Miss Sandra D, your fiance, and you and her both work together as well.
Absolutely. Sandra and I, we just did a show today, Serpent and Dove. We have a YouTube channel called Serpent and Dove. It's Serpent, I think it is Serpent and Dove, or it's an ampersand. I'm not sure what it is, but yeah, we do a lot of work together. Her YouTube channel is called Raw Reflections. We have a website together, serpentandandDove.org. And Sandra's website is rawreflections.org. She's an expert at helping you on meditation instruction, conscious parenting, relationships. We work together on a lot of stuff. And yep, she is my fiance, lovely woman. And I'm very proud and honored to be able to do work with her. And the Serpent and Dove show is actually on this channel now. I haven't been able to put it up on our Serpent and Dove channel. So if you want to take a look at that, we were talking about the law of vibration today. Yeah. Really interesting program. I think you'd enjoy it. Thank you, Wayne, for that.
Well, absolutely. And folks, particularly those who are in relationships and those who are not, it's good. I call it good counseling.
And we got a little transparent today, a little, even though you're with a twin flame, even though you're madly in love, you're still living in this world, and there's still some challenges and some rough spots. And
oh my God, you mean y'all are human?
Absolutely. I didn't think that we were, but it turns out that we are. And, there's things that you can do to realize that, recognize that, and stay in love, even though it's not all, with, again, apologies to Magenta Pixie, even though it's not all unicorns and rainbows all the time.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And check out her show, Wayne. If you haven't seen her channel yet, Magenta Pixie, I think you'd really enjoy talking with her. You might consider having her on your channel.
I'd love to have her on. I think that's
fascinating. She'll be coming back on my channel real soon, and just an amazing woman. And she has a really strong heart for linking up the new age crowd with the more truther crowd like us. And I think there's some really great synergy that we can build together between these two genres.
I love that. In fact, as you were saying, when I had the mental picture, truthers sometimes can be really hard. Where sometimes we can be very abrasive.
Absolutely.
And what we need is that balance from the other side that can be much more gentle on that. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Mr. Daugherty, it's been a pleasure.
As always, Wayne, it's been a great pleasure. And I'm looking forward to Sunday when Global Witness Derek Brose will be joining us on Not Your Normal Sunday show.
I think we're going to blow the doors out on that one.
And I'm looking forward to this new year, Wayne. We'll go over 100 episodes. That's kind of like the benchmark, right?
Yeah. I mean,
before you know it, we'll be like Sam and Dean Winchester. We'll be having 12 seasons and stuff like that.
Nothing wrong with that. Listen, those shows are great. They're the downloads that happen. I mean, I walk away sometimes going, where did that come from?
That show literally has changed my life at least 3 times.
It's done mine many times.
In a year. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, hey, folks, join us over there. You'll still love it. All right, Jeff, thank you. I won't keep you any longer. Thank all of the folks here tonight. Be good to yourselves. Join us Sunday morning. And in the meantime, enjoy the weekend. Jeff, stay on as we get out here. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, folks.
All right, folks. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.